Okay, now is my audio working? Okay, good. Freaking Discord. Is anyone recording this presentation?
There we go.
Wah, wah.
Wah,
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 wah.
wah. Yeah, it's understandable. Any recordings are appreciated.
Wah.
Wah,
Wah.
wah,
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 wah.
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 Wah. Okay, seems like this is going to be the only recording of this panel, so
That's all right.
yeah, it should be fine. Okay, let me pull up my script, and I'll go ahead and begin because we got bullet dials, little discussion thing soon. So, greetings all, and welcome to my final panel of the Draconic Summit Winter Solstice 2024. I am, as you all can tell, I am absolutely exhausted by this point in the weekend from all the good times and the good discussions I've had. Though it was worth it to spend all of this energy making this weekend everyone and productive for everyone who attended. This final panel of mine will be a short one, and a lot of it will be spoken from my heart and my memory rather than reading from a script. Though this presentation will focus mainly on my story as an Indigenous Mesoamerican person who balances out honoring their physical humanity and their non-humanity, who engages with their Indigenous culture through an entirely non-human lens. Again, I am pretty exhausted, so I do apologize if I'm not exactly coherent over the course of this panel, if I miss any important details or stumble on my words. Regardless, though, I am Lunat. I am a lyco-draconic werewolf connected to a divine, non-perceivable celestial draconian being, who I also call Lunat. Lunat is a being that I am a fragment of, and I live this human life in Lunat's interest. I'm not exactly a separate entity from Lunat, considering that I am essentially her little experiment upon this earth. I live this human life to gather knowledge, memories, and experiences for her personal pursuit of gaining ever gaining knowledge on the mortal experience and on distant cultures. I am a two-spirit Indigenous Maya traditional dancer, though I often label myself as Mexica or Indigenous Mesoamerican, depending on whether I'm in ceremonial spaces or not. When I am in ceremonial spaces, I will say that I am Mexica or that I am Maya. For those who don't know, Mexica is the original indigenous word for the people of Tenochtitlan, modern-day Mexico City, the city of the Aztecs. I don't know. I probably don't have any ancestors in Tenochtitlan itself, though many indigenous dancers probably don't have direct ancestors in Tenochtitlan. We're just all indigenous Mesoamerican folks from all different places engaging in the culture of the last great civilization of our area of the world. Yeah. Like I said, you will really only ever hear my being call myself Indigenous Mesoamerican, Mexica, or Maya. You will only ever hear my being call myself Mexican or Latina in a joking context, since I use primarily Indigenous identifiers, or original Indigenous identifiers in the original language, like Maya, Mexica. Anyways, like many other Indigenous Mesoamerican folks in America, I did not realize that this human body was indigenous until my Earth Mother randomly brought it up in a conversation at a grocery store. I mentioned the Maya civilization and that I was interested in looking at indigenous culture. And she said, "Oh yeah, did you know that we're actually indigenous Maya?" And I was like, "What the fuck? Why didn't you say anything about this before?" that essentially led my being down a path of discovering family history, learning family stories, though wasn't able to gain that many, sadly. My Earth family passed away, the ones who I wanted to hear stories from. And that essentially started the beginning of my Indigenous reconnection journey. I only started engaging in ceremonial spaces when I attended a presentation at my local college hosted by two of my now best friends regarding Indigenous spaces and local Indigenous history in the human body's hometown of Corpus Christi. They introduced my being to my previous kalpuli. A kalpuli is a Nahuatl word that basically refers to a Mexica ceremonial dance group that engages with the ancient traditions of Tenochtitlan as a group. However, I am no longer a part of this kalpuli due to reasons I am not going to mention. I am now part of another kalpuli, and I will be tied in there as a salmador, tradition. How do I say it in English? I have a very specific role in my kalpuli, though. That's just easier if I explain. I light a ceremonial burner with copal and ocote. Copal is a ceremonial resin and ceremonial wood, and I use this ceremonial burner to cleanse the space, to cleanse other dancers. When I light this ceremonial burner, it's called a popashkomit in Nahuatl. I always have to keep my energies in check. I always have to keep a positive energy, which is difficult for someone like my being, though I manage. And that's my role in the kalpuli. And next year, I will be tied into that role as in that kalpuli in ceremony. And by the way, if anyone from my Indigenous community stumbles across this videos and hears my words and my non-human experiences, no, you didn't. You didn't hear anything. I'm still the same goofy wolf dancer you met before you heard all of this. That's lighthearted, by the way. Feel free to ask any questions about my non-humanity if you're from my local Indigenous community. Anyways, I attended multiple ceremonies at the end of 2022, though I did not gather the courage to actually dance myself in ceremony until June of 2023, because I didn't know what my identity as a traditional Indigenous dancer was then. And it took my being a while to figure that out. Though that's later. I did not gather the courage to dance in ceremony until June of 2023, and it was pretty spontaneous, honestly. My first ceremony was actually a sweat lodge ceremony, the day before the June 2023 ceremony where I did danza. Though us Mexica dancers in the Indigenous Mesoamerican community, we call the sweat lodge a tamascal. Over time, I started gaining confidence as an Indigenous dancer. Well, hold on, I should explain what a sweat lodge is. For those who don't know, a sweat lodge is a small, closed-off ceremonial space. For some, it's like a dome. For some, there's other ways to build a sweat lodge, though the purpose of a sweat lodge is to use steam from heated rocks in the center of the sweat lodge to cleanse the body and the soul with in a ceremonial way, and singing songs, or as we call them in the Indigenous Mesoamerican community, cantos, and other ways. There's different ways of doing sweat lodges throughout the continental Americas, though that's the basis of it. So that was the first ceremony I engaged in. Over time, I started gaining confidence as an Indigenous dancer, though it took a long time since I naturally have social anxiety in human spaces, and because I was still finding my place as a traditional Indigenous dancer. During ceremonies, I was always uncertain of myself at the beginning. I asked myself, why do I dance? Who do I honor when I dance? What is my identity as a traditional Indigenous dancer? And other more self-conscious questions like, oh, well, what do the other dancers think of my being? Am I doing this exactly right? Oh, I have to worry about my appearance. And additionally, in those times, I felt that I had to engage with Indigenous human culture solely as a human, through a completely human lens, to ignore my non-humanity, to dance as a human and not as the Draconic werewolf that I dance as now. It all started to click when I was dancing during a powwow in Austin in, I believe, April. And Altanok actually told my being halfway through the dance when I wasn't feeling very confident, and he told my being, Lunat, you can't ignore the most important part of yourself, the part that makes you who you are. You can't ignore your non-humanity in this culture. If you want to define your identity as a traditional indigenous dancer, you need to embrace your non-humanity, and you need to incorporate aspects of your non-humanity in your traditional indigenous dances, ceremonies, and other practices. So, and he said, just don't be afraid of accepting yourself as a non-human engaging with indigenous culture. So now I interact with indigenous human culture entirely through a non-human lens, thanks to Altanok helping my being to gain confidence. And after I was contacted by Tezcatlipoca, though I'll get to that in a second. And thank you, Altanok, by the way. It's so much appreciated. I love you. I love you so much. Anyways, and for those who don't know, Altanok is my Lunath soulmate and my soulmate by proxy, since I am a fragment of Lunath. He loves all parts of my being, and I'm grateful for that. Additionally, when I honor the Creator, Mother Earth, and Father Sky in indigenous rituals, for those who don't know, the Creator, Mother Earth, and Father Sky are very important sacred figures in indigenous culture. I honor them through honoring the three divine draconian creator divinities that Lunath and I revere and worship upon Lunath's home realms. So I honor the Creator, Mother Earth, and Father Sky under those names in ceremony. It's so non-traditional, I know. It's incredibly strange, especially if anyone from the indigenous community is listening to this, and you shouldn't be, though. Yeah. That's what I believe. And that's how I combined a bit of my draconic spirituality with my indigenous human culture. And that's what I feel is right. I don't want to deny that part of myself. And I don't feel that I should. It's just, it feels wrong for my being to deny everything that I am in an aspect of my human life that's so important to my being and so integral to my purpose upon this earth, which is to gather knowledge, to gather experiences, and to experience a human life. So, I mentioned Tezcatlipoca. At some point during some of my ceremonies, around early 2024, I was contacted by Lord Tezcatlipoca. I call him Lord Tezcatlipoca. Most indigenous peoples in communities like mine you will meet will just call him Tezcatlipoca. Though I choose to call him Lord Tezcatlipoca. That's just my preference, and that's what he drives my being to do, I guess. It is what he wants my being to do, though. Yeah. Around early 2024, during a ceremony when I was setting up the Mamoshli, that's the Nahuatl word for altar, a ceremonial altar. In each ceremony, we always set up a Mamoshli, an altar. We put different things in the four directions. The four directions are a very important concept in indigenous culture. So, when I was putting together a Mamoshli, and a little bit of other context, in Mashika ceremonies, we honor four sacred energies, gods, divinities, however you call them, however you would view them. We honor them in the four directions. We honor Quetzalcoatl, the plumed serpent, precious serpent, Lord of the East, in the East. We honor Tezcatlipoca, Lord of the North, Lord of the Night, Jaguar's smoking mirror, in the north direction. We honor Huitzilopochtli, the left-winged hummingbird. I think it's hummingbird on the left, actually. We honor him in the south. And in the west, we honor Jepetotec, the flayed one and the Lord of Vegetation, in the west. So we honor each of these energies in the four directions. And when I was setting up the Mamoshli during one ceremony, when I was helping set up the Mamoshli, I looked at Tezcatlipoca's image. Or actually, maybe it was during a Temascal where he first contacted. Maybe I don't know. All I know is that I remember Tezcatlipoca. When I looked at an image of him on the Mamoshri in the north direction, something called to my being in a way that I've never felt before. And I know this wasn't caused by my schizoaffective, mainly because it felt different, and it's a feeling that persisted. And in the context where I felt this, it just, I don't know. It's also worth mentioning that I seem, despite my bubbliness and my silliness, I seem to attract dark entities. Altanach and Volatile are perfect examples of that. It all seemed to match up, especially with Lunath having a connection to the stars, to the night. It just seemed too real to ignore, essentially, in spite of my initial skepticism, in spite of my initial pushing him away. I originally wanted to contact Quetzalcoatl at first, though I guess Quetzalcoatl has other things to do. It's Tezcatlipoca who really attached to my being. So, Tezcatlipoca contacted my being, and even though I ignored him, his contact became stronger and stronger over time. I just came to accept that, yeah, he was contacting my being, and yeah, he was interested in my being. I now very often dance and offer my energy. I guess sacrifice my energy and sometimes my blood. I do it safely. Don't do what I do unless you know absolutely what you're doing. And I dance for him. I honor him in traditional ceremonies, even though I do honor all four of the cardinal energies that we honor in Mexica ceremonies. Tezcatlipoca seem to attach to my being more. And I'm still non-traditional, quite non-traditional compared to the other dancers in my community, so. Anyways, besides that, I know Lord Tezcatlipoca became interested in my being because of my non-humanity, and because of the way I interacted with indigenous culture through a non-human lens, because of the way I dance as a non-human rather than as a human. He is also interested in my Draconic spirituality, and he always watches my Draconian rituals, especially ones where I speak Draconic from afar. He actually helped my being to realize that I had a past life as a jaguar where I met him multiple times in this life, actually. The memories I have of Tezcatlipoca in this physical life as a jaguar are very vague. So my life as a jaguar, it started as a normal physical life as a black jaguar, actually, during the time when either the ancient Olmecs thrived or the very ancient Maya thrived. Probably would make more sense if it was the ancient Maya, considering my human body's lineage. Though regardless, I met Tezcatlipoca in this physical life multiple times. I saw apparitions of him. And these apparitions of Tezcatlipoca, they were nothing like the Aztec depictions of him. Looking back on the memories now, I still do feel a little bit of the fear that was invoked by his very presence. It's hard to explain what he looked like. He didn't look human at all in these appearances. He looked, I wouldn't say like a skeleton adorned with feathers and indigenous objects, though. I don't know, kind of close. Anyways, the first encounter I had with Tezcatlipoca as a jaguar was when he looked at my being from afar. I suppose I'm assuming that he knew there was something different about this jaguar. This jaguar is quite special. And I actually tried to run away. At least from my recollection of this memory. My jaguar self tried to run away from him. So he caught my being, and he grabbed my neck, pinned my being onto the jungle floor, and he looked directly into my eyes, even as I hissed at him. He didn't say a word. He just looked at my being for, I don't know how many seconds, maybe it was a minute. Eventually, though, he let my being go, and I didn't see him again for a while. And the other times I saw him, from my memory, from my current recollection, were from afar. He didn't touch my being again, not until this jaguar life died. And Tezcatlipoca actually brought this jaguar back as a spirit. I realize I said this was a 30-minute panel that was probably going to go overboard. Whatever. Tezcatlipoca brought this jaguar back as a spirit. And the more this jaguar lived as a spirit, the more intelligence she gained. And the more intelligence she gained, the more she was able to understand human culture, the more she was able to look at human culture. And I'm grateful that I had this life, that I have these memories that appear in my mind, because it's comforting to my being knowing that I didn't miss out on the glory days of Mesoamerican culture. I saw them just in a different life. And I can't describe the memories that I had of my jaguar life as a spirit, because all these memories came to my being in a Temazcal or during ceremony. And in Mexica ceremonial spaces, especially in regards to Temazcals, we say that what happens in the Temazcal stays in the Temazcal. You do not talk about the healing that occurs in the Temazcal. You keep it to yourself or with the group that you experience the healing with. So unfortunately, I cannot go into those memories, though. And that was that. And because of all this history I have with Tezcatlipoca, because of his interest in my Draconity and my Lycodraconity, I've developed a relationship with him. In the sense that he's interested in my being, and I'm interested in him. And we're going through the motions of balancing out my Draconic spiritual path and honoring him. I have a feeling that he wants my being to honor him in combining both aspects of Indigenous culture and my Draconic culture. And yeah, when I dance, I often dance for Tezcatlipoca. There is a very specific dance in Mexica culture. The dance is called Tezcatlipoca. When I dance this dance for Tezcatlipoca, I very often dance as my werewolf self. When I realize that I am dancing the dance of Lord Tezcatlipoca, and when I realize that this is his dance and in this dance I'm offering my energy to him. Wow, I am fumbling on my words. Anyways, I feel invigorated, absolutely invigorated. Even when I am absolutely exhausted and on the brink of either passing out or my legs buckling, something in my being, it's rejuvenated when I realize that I'm dancing for him, when I'm offering my energy to him, and when I can give him this sacred offering. I have a black eagle feather that I dance with, and this eagle feather I dedicate to Tezcatlipoca. So when I hold this eagle feather, it's medicine, it's eagle medicine. Though, when I hold this eagle feather, I always remember Tezcatlipoca. And when I dance with this eagle feather, I want to offer the medicine of the eagle to Tezcatlipoca alongside my energy. So, let's see. Oh, and the way I dance as the jaguar, I dance as both the jaguar and the wolf. When I dance as the jaguar, I'm actually going to pull up my animal dancer essay since I touched on it here. Let's see, where is it? Where the hell is it? Okay, you know what? I can't find it. So I'm just going to go from my heart, even if I miss some important details. When I dance as the jaguar, I dance with more grace. In my jaguar life, even when she gained full sapience, and even when my jaguar life, she was able to take a human form, she never danced as vigorously as I do in Indigenous ceremonies. She always danced with grace. She never exerted much energy. More like a delicate flower than a raging flame. So I often switch between dancing as the jaguar and dancing as the wolf. I dance as the jaguar when I feel a little bit more exhausted, and when I remember that I dance with grace in this sense. However, when I dance as Norak, my Lycodraconic wolf soul, I dance with so much more vigor than I ever could when I just dance as a human. It's it's a very surreal experience at times. Sometimes I recognize that it could be a dopamine rush from satisfying the human urge to engage with human culture, though I believe there can be some spiritual experiences happening. I went into that in my past panel. I'm not gonna go through it again, whatever. Let's see. So when I dance as the Lego Draconic werewolf, I do so with a lot of vigor, and I often express my animalistic twists on the dances in these dances. I incorporate aspects of my non-humanity in my dances. I know some people in my community will probably look at my being like I'm crazy when I'm baring my teeth and when I have my claws out and when I'm shaking my head back and forth like a wolf tearing meat from a carcass, though this is the way I dance and this is how I'm supposed to. This is how I feel that I'm supposed to dance. It's my purpose, my identity as a dancer. And I recognize that even if they do judge my being, they're not being very traditional because in the Indigenous community, we're not supposed to judge each other. We're not supposed to judge each other's dances. That's kind of like a taboo. So, let's see, what else do I need to touch on before I pass out from exhaustion?
You can do it.
Yeah, I know I can. I'm just being facetious.
Oh my God.
So I mentioned the eagles. My connection with eagles stems from Narok's connection with eagles in her previous mortal lives. I believe I touched on this in my vast uniqueness of Draconity panel at the beginning of the summit, though I'll go through it again and probably add a few more other important details. So these eagles, in Norok's previous lives, they were black eagles. That's why the black eagle feather that I have is so important to my being, because this eagle feather is, well, eagle feathers are very sacred in Indigenous culture. For those who don't know, the eagle is the most revered, considered the most holy and powerful of all the birds. The eagle is the people's messenger to the Creator. Eagle carries our prayers on his wings to the Creator. In many of our stories, Eagle has a lot of love for us, and he often appears in our creation stories. In the creation of the Five Sons myth, or I shouldn't say myth, even though I don't believe in myself. It's our the Mexica, the Aztec creation story. The eagle and the jaguar jumped into the fire with Nanahuatzin, who is the energy who sacrificed himself to become the fifth sun. And the eagle and the jaguar sacrificed themselves alongside with Nanahuatzin to become the sun. So the eagle played a direct part in our creation stories. And another section of the story, I believe, I'm pretty sure this is accurate, when the eagle was originally white, and when he flew over the fire of when Nanahuatzin was set, and I forget how to say his name. Elders in my community are so disappointed. It starts with a T. Tekisizal, I said that wrong. Though he sacrificed himself alongside Nanahuatzin to become the moon. Nanahuatzin became the sun. Tekisizal, I said that wrong, became the moon. And the jaguar and the eagle sacrificed themselves alongside with him. Though I also remember hearing another version or part of the story where the eagle was originally white before flying over the fire, where Nanahuatzin and Tekisizal, I said that wrong again, sorry, were sacrificed. And because the eagle flew over that fire, he lost his white feathers, and he gained his golden brown plumage. And to the Mexica people, that is why we have the golden eagle. And when the jaguar leaped over the fire, that's when the jaguar gained his spots. Anyways, the eagle has a connection to many of our creation stories. It's one example. And eagle is very revered. His feathers are, I say his because when you hear our elders talk, you will often hear them refer to the eagle as a he, and he is referred to as a he in a lot of stories, and I don't know, I'll follow in the elders' footsteps there. So, the eagle is very important. Very, very important. Another thing about the eagle feathers is that you never, ever, ever drop an eagle feather. When you drop an eagle feather, it's considered a very bad sign. The eagle feather should never touch the ground. One elder that I read of in a book told my being that, or not told my being, when I read that when the eagle, in his recount of the eagle feather belief, when the eagle drops a feather, and this is in the context of indigenous culture, when the eagle drops a feather, he circles around the feather 3 times, and then he never returns to the spot where he dropped the feather. When someone drops an eagle feather, to many of our elders and to many of our traditions, the eagle feather should not be given back to whoever dropped it. The eagle feather should be given to an elder to take care of until the elder can find someone who is worthy enough to take care of the eagle feather. I have never dropped this black eagle feather that I have. I've never dropped the majority of the other eagle feathers that I have. I am sad to say that I did drop an eagle feather once, though the wind blew it out of my hand, actually, regardless, though. It was still bad on my part. I offered tobacco to the eagle feather, and I will be giving the eagle feather to someone who I feel is worthy of taking care of this feather. Anyways, eagle is very important in indigenous culture. Is literally anything to take away from this. And I understand this, and originally in my reconnection journey as an indigenous person, I didn't connect with eagles. I couldn't really care less for eagles, as much as I hate to say that, though it was true. I didn't really want to connect with eagles. I know Altanok is very proud of my being for connecting with eagles, because of his love for quail. Though my connection with eagles, it mainly stems from Nurok's connection with eagles. When Nurok lived in all of her previous lives, she was always shadowed by eagles and ravens, though the eagles stuck out to my being for some reason. Probably because I'm indigenous, probably because of that bias. I don't know, I'll have to do some thinking on it. And Nurok, like I did upon this earth, Nurok originally could not care less for the eagles. She actually found them an annoyance. I didn't find eagles annoying upon this earth, obviously, though she did. Anyways, she found the eagles annoying. She often swatted them away from her kills, snapped at them, hissed at them. She never hurt them, though, well, she never did any serious damage to them, though sometimes she would whack them with her tail and roar and hiss, say, go, or essentially say, go away, this is my kill. Eventually, though, Nurok started to feel some semblance of regret for harming the eagles. It's important to know that Nurok is a very feral being, so any empathy that she feels, anything related to intelligence is extremely limited. And Nurok eventually started to feel bad. And at some point, she no longer harmed the eagles. She just let them scavenge from her kill. Maybe she realized she was being greedy. Maybe she realized that, I don't know, they needed to scavenge from her kills. So she relented. She decided that the eagles were not a nuisance. In fact, they were something to appreciate. A few of my vivid memories of Nurok are of watching eagles, and the times when she came to appreciate the eagles, actually. Not revere them, like I do upon this earth, though appreciate them. And my connection with the eagle upon this earth is a connection to the Creator, to Tezcatlipoca, to my non-humanity. Oh, something else I forgot. It was really important. Whatever. So the eagle means a lot to my being as an indigenous person, though as a non-human being who had interactions with eagles as well. I hold this black eagle feather that I'm holding now in very high regard. And I honor the eagle, not worship. It's a very common myth spread around non-native communities that indigenous peoples worship eagles. We don't worship the eagle. We don't worship the feather. We honor the eagle. We revere the eagle because of his medicine, because of his stories, his knowledge, because of his connection to Creator and many other sacred things. So we do not worship him. I do not worship eagles. I just revere them. I have thought about using this black eagle feather to also call upon the spirit of an eagle that Nurok knew, though I don't know how I would even begin to do something like that. I don't know. I'll read more into indigenous culture, and maybe then I'll feel more confident to do that. Regardless, though, to bring a bit of an end to this panel, so I can also allow Zephrys to speak, it's been a very interesting experience balancing my humanity and my non-humanity. The only reason I connect with my humanity is because of in this way, is because of my indigenous culture. Because I feel that it's important in the age of disappearing, we call it, in the indigenous community, we're losing so much of our knowledge, we're losing so many of our elders. I feel that it is part of my purpose living as an indigenous human and also experiencing life through Lunath's eyes to do whatever I can to gain this knowledge, not just in Lunath's interest, though so I can pass it down in the future. An elder that I know currently says that for indigenous peoples, we don't gather knowledge for ourselves, for our own interests. We gather them to preserve it, to pass it on to the next generation, to make sure it lives. And when I gather indigenous knowledge, when I write all these essays, and when I archive all these resources on indigenous culture, it's not solely for Lunath's interest. It's also for the interest of the indigenous community that I've come to become a part of, that I've come to love so much, that's come to become just a big part of my human life. And it's been a very rewarding experience, even though it was kind of rocky at first, navigating my identity as an indigenous person who also doesn't see themselves as human, who also has a lot of social anxiety and other issues pertaining to, confidence and mental health. It's just been a very rewarding experience, and as I continue to navigate my identity as an indigenous dancer, my voice is cracking wet. I will continue to speak about my experiences when I feel comfortable speaking about them. I have unfortunately had bad experiences talking about indigenous culture in non-indigenous spaces, so I will mainly talk about them in the Other Kind of Color Alliance, which is my server I created for non-white ultrahumans, only for non-white ultrahumans, though occasionally I will share those experiences outside of said server. And when I eventually put together the Powwow of the Non-Human, this is an online ultrahuman event that I am planning for the sharing of experiences from not only indigenous other ultrahumans, though also other non-white ultrahumans. I'll let you all know how that goes. Anyways, my voice is giving out quite a bit, so I will go ahead and let Zephrys speak what she wants to speak about her indigenous culture, and that's basically the basics of my indigenous reconnection journey with balancing out my indigenous culture and everything similar to that.
Hold on, I lost the tab.
Oof.
Something else. Okay. And we're on panel 19. Okay. There is a question for you on discussion 19 if you'd like to type a response to that, Luna. I know you're
Okay, yeah, I wasn't looking at the chat.
Yeah, no. That's why I'm here. I help that.
Oh,
I don't really
water.
have go get some water. Yeah, go do that. I don't have too much to say. I know for one thing, it feels isolating in this community. As I think I was explaining to someone not too long ago, I feel like a stranger in a strange land oftentimes in this community because of the fact that it's not only strange being a dragon, but it's strange that I feel like I have other differences that make me so different from everyone else around me. And one of those things is I'm not white. And like many of the others I have encountered, the other community seems to be predominantly white people, which isn't a bad thing. But it feels weird because it's like it's another layer where I don't feel like I have any connection to anybody with that are like me. But that's even weirder within itself because I grew up with white people, I was raised by white people, I'm adopted. So I don't have a lot of connection to my culture from the get-go. So it's been a strange ride for me in the levels of isolation that I have. Um it once actually understanding um yeah, the Anglocentrism centricism within the community is strong. I agree. And so getting my own culture context wasn't something I even got or understood until much later. Now I'm starting to do more steps and things to do a little reconnection with my culture, and it's hard. Lunat is very lucky that yo adopted dragon gang, yeah. Lunat is very lucky that she has groups that she can go to experience her culture and relearn and connect on those levels. Um, One thing that she also has a little bit more of advantage of, despite the fact that her connections to her indigenous roots are very disconnected, her family and stuff still has some kind of connection to culture, where in which I was not brought up in a Latino or Mesoamerican culture whatsoever. I was raised by an Italian and a WASP. So I was growing up, I lived in a very suburban and well-off neighborhood that was very safe and sterilized. Most of my classmates were white. My friends were as well. I had no um exposure to where I came from or what I am. I'm from Guatemala, exactly. WASP is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Like usually people who have it's hard to explain, but maybe someone can explain it in the comments. There's a very specific culture with that. Uh if you know, you know. Either way, white people. Straight up white people and then Italian flavor, which at that point was so watered down, there wasn't even enough culture to call it Italian, which makes me sad, honestly. I didn't really have a sense of culture growing up. Being adopted from Guatemala, I is very likely that anyone from Guatemala, a country in Central America, right under Mexico, is Maya native. I did do a DNA test because I was curious to see what the hell I was. It's not like they teach you about Central America that much in school. So a lot of my learning had to be on my own. And even then, it's been extremely difficult because if you don't speak Spanish, which I don't, I'm very poor at speaking Spanish, um, or having any connections to that, it's like good luck and fuck you with finding any kind of information regarding your culture. It's still very much that way, and it is very upsetting that I don't really have a connection to anyone's culture, including my own. But I did find out I am Maya native, Yucatec Maya native among other natives of the area, but that one was the highest, so it's mostly regarding that. I don't have any idea of how to worship or talk to or deal with anything regarding my culture. What I know is from textbooks and a class I went to in college, which is upsetting. It's very difficult to reconnect outside of that area, and if there's no one to show you the way. So I've just been doing spirituality and stuff on my own, outside of indigenous practices because I was too afraid to even connect or go to indigenous sources. Now I'm learning that I actually have a shamanic gift, and being close to the earth and being shamanistic is something that's just naturally a gift that I have. Um, and I still respect things of what I know that my culture does, like using sage and sit. Most people shouldn't do, and in my spiritual circles, I don't advocate for it. That and also Palo Santo, which if you're sage is more if you're in North America, a native from North America, specifically the Southwest. Um, Cultures in the eastern part of North America used, I want to say cedar, but I don't
Yes,
remember.
cedar and
It was
sweetgrass.
cedar and sweetgrass they used for things. And in Central America and South America, typically like things like copal and palo santo and other related trees. Which there are apothecaries that sell certain things depending where you live, where you can get such things. And I have gotten some interesting sticks. I have yerba. I don't know if Zaki's here, but we went to an apothecary, which is basically an ethnic store for people who believe in like a lot of ethnic religions that you don't typically see. It's very common here in Florida, but I think that's because of how transient Florida could be. So like things like Haitian practices like voodoo and stuff, and a few others. And there's a lot of influences from Central and South America. So you can pick up if you're native, you can or relating into anything of those areas, going to apothecaries down there, you can find ingredients to help your craft. There is good because I could get Palo Santo things. I really would like to get work with shit, what's her name now? Lady Death. La Muerte.
Santa Muerte.
Santa Muerte. I think she's awesome. I think she's great. I would like to work with her and do things with her. I have not done anything yet because I'm too much of a chicken because I have this issue where I'm like, I'm not. Same thing with Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl is the plumed serpent, also known as Kukulkan from Maya. I would like to work with him as well because of the draconic and reptilian energy, as well as the energy of bringing creativity, benevolence to humanity, and chocolate and other things that I really aspire to, but I have not gotten to the point where I feel like I can get to divination of those deities, but those things are open to me. I would not recommend people who are outside of certain nationalities to practice. If you are not native Hawaiian, please do not worship things like Pele and other natives things from that area. You're from if you're outside of anything with Native American tribes as well, I really recommend to stay away from that. As Luna has mentioned, the cultures around the world of natives are disappearing at an alarming rate. It's okay you learn about them and preserve their knowledge, but their practices should really be secluded to those that are still within that jurisdiction. It's difficult enough existing and knowing that there was a whole genocide on this massive continent of indigenous cultures that we will never see again. I think about that in everything I do that can remotely be indigenous. And even though I don't have a lot of knowledge or information regarding any indigenous heritage or ways to practice, what I do have, I promise to protect because of how quickly and rare these things are becoming. And I think while we still have them, they should be preserved and left to the peoples that know how to use those and still take care of those practices. Um, that being said, everybody has a culture and a history. If you are if you hail from a certain country or place, you can always see what your people have done in your spiritual practices. I'm more than there's definitely things like if you're from Ireland or Scotland, there's a lot of pagan cactuses that you can use that are there that are not ours that you can have and do what you will. And those are also considered pretty open as well. But for native things, especially with cultures that have been mass slaughtered, we prefer to keep things a little more close knit. And to have that respect in this community is also appreciated. And be careful when you're talking about things like Quetzalcoatl or Kukulkan or anything regarding those any dragon like creatures because it's more than just a fun little critter for you. They're a sacred being to us that has been with us since the beginning of time, that has been incorporated in our life and our belief systems. And when people go like, "Well, I am Quetzalcoatl" or whatever, like it's makes me feel sick.
Same.
It cheapens things. It makes us feel like our lives and our matters and our belief systems don't matter, and that this is a cute little game for you to just have. And that's not how this works. There's only one Quetzalcoatl. There is only one Kukulkan. And it's things like that. Uh, I don't know if you want to keep looking in any of the
Yeah.
Look in the chat. But anyway, I'm losing my train of mind. It's been a rocky road for me, but I'm still very proud of the native heritage that I come from. And at this point, I consider myself more of a wanderer with my practices and beliefs, and hoping maybe someday I can find a tribe that will adopt me, per se. But until then, I'm just gathering knowledge and using what I can. My alter humanity influences what I believe in, giving power and resonance to my stuff. I had mentioned, I don't remember in one panel, but I mentioned in a panel that I often use breath work with cleansing and dealing with things. I'm a dragon, I breathe fire. That's kind of like my whole MO. When cleansing, when setting barriers, when doing energy work, I incorporate that a lot in what I do. When I am cleansing, I use Palo Santo a lot. And I'll even sometimes, I don't know if you'll kill me or if it'll work, but sometimes I'll ask, like, Kukulkan. Because I think Kukulkan's pretty neat. I have no idea if he can hear me or not, but I figure it's worth a guess. That he makes the space clean, he cleanses the area for me. I ask him for small little favors. La Muerte, Santa Muerte, I really appreciate her vibe and her energy, and I hope to work with her soon. And dealing with how things are equal and give and take with her, and also the fact if you've seen her, she looks like the Grim Reaper, but she's awesome. She's cool. She's chill. She's a folk deity that's actually really well loved in Central America at the present, and she doesn't care that I'm a dragon. She doesn't care who I am, what I've been through, or anything like that. I am equal to her as she is equal to me. So her value of acceptance is something I really do appreciate when I do start working with her. If I decide to do so, that she'll be very kind and understanding in those practices, and that the fact that my draconity won't get in the way of things. Sometimes I feel other spiritual beings and entities don't want to work with me or actively afraid of me because of how I appear on the spiritual. There has been a few times where when I've been doing my mediumship practice, where I work on my medium gifts, so things like connecting to the dead and speaking to people who are no longer with us, as well as other things. Um, that I've gotten people, probably human spirits, that have been afraid of me, and I've gotten pelted with crosses a few times, which I don't hold any ill will. I just think it's funny. And everybody else doesn't really understand why that's happening to me. And I can't explain it to them because I'm not at the point where I trust my spiritual groups enough to tell them I'm a dragon. But I'm like, they think I'm the devil. That's why they're throwing things at me.
Oof.
I think it's funny. I don't really I'm not really offended by it. I understand that I'm giant. Well, I don't know if I'm giant, but I might be relatively large and I'm scary looking. I'm not something that looks friendly if you're someone who's not used to dealing with draconic spirits or energy. If you're just like, imagine your sweet old lady down the block, she dies, and the first thing she sees is me in my dragon form. I don't know if that sweet old lady is going to be pretty happy about that. So
Understandable.
it's funny. I don't mean any harm with any of that. Being a dragon also helps with my shamanic path in that it's very animalistic, and being a shaman, you're connected to the earth and you see things for what they are around you. You're connected to energies, and I know Luna touched a little bit on eagle medicine, but the medicine of animals is important to me. My parents have taught and continue to teach me many things, and their energy has done a lot to lift and inspire me. I take lessons from all beings, and I try to learn what I can when I connect with them and use that to help myself and others. And being a dragon is instrumental because being animal, I feel, helps me bridge the gap. I know I went a little bit long, but that's it for together. Yes, any indigenous peoples around the world are probably being persecuted as hell. I'm not gonna lie. That's definitely a thing. But one of the main things I think at this point is that with native peoples of color, it's very hard for us to exist. Even now, as Luna had touched upon, the government still beating the fuck out of us. There are people who live on reservations that still don't have running water and electricity. Just so you guys know.
Yeah.
And it's not just here. I'm sure you can find things like even with the natives of Australia, they suffer. Natives all over the place. People who live in Mongolia, the Swami, I can't remember the names. They deal with pressures from things like it's a whole thing. Like, and it's mostly thank you, the Sami. It's mostly with peoples of color that get the brunt end of it, and that's kind of why I'm a little more protective those because other peoples who are indigenous and pretty white presenting, they're okay. So, I don't want to get into any politics, but people of color historically have not been treated well, and it's worse if you're native for whatever reason. I don't know why. I didn't make the rules, but it's very large that people aren't treated right. In my country, in Guatemala, there was a 12-year war that started because of all kinds of dumb shit with America, if you could believe it. And it led to the culling of my people who were indigenous, that were Maya and anything of that sort, were hunted down and killed. This stopped in 1996. There are still people missing. So this is still happening relatively now, and I'm sure in other places in South America as well. Unfortunately, I don't know much beyond that. But just to give you an example of how things are still going negatively for us. Also, indigenous people in Guatemala were also tested on for products and had a lot of things taken away. Nestle pretty much did a lot of shitty things to us, and there's a lot of horrible things that have happened to the indigenous of Guatemala. Um, I am very protective over it, even though it's something that I'm not close to and relatively. But yeah, I just ask all of you be respectful of those things. Luna, do you like to say anything else?
Yeah, and by the way, thank you for sharing. And that also ties into the question about Celtic. Why did I say it like that? I'm in my Nahuatl.
Celtic.
I'm in my Nahuatl mode. That's why.
I think it's more like Celt anyway.
Yeah, the Celt. In regards to that question, I'm exhausted. I'll answer
You
it.
can do
Don't
it.
worry about it. Yes, I know. I'm gonna hold the eagle feather. I'm gonna get.
You can
I
do
need
it.
the eagle. I need eagleness to devour my being.
No, it's with the
Uh,
hard cuts. Okay, I'm sorry. Zachy knows these things.
oh yeah,
Celtic.
yeah. On the question of the Celtic, we do. I know I keep saying it weird. I'm in my Nahuatl mode. In regards to that, yes, us indigenous folks do recognize that the Celts and similar groups in Europe did go through some of the similar things that indigenous peoples have gone through. However, the term indigenous, and in regards to the term indigenous, it refers to folks of color, not in Europe, essentially non-white. So folks who are indigenous to the continental Americas, to island nations, Asia, Africa, Australia, wherever else I'm not thinking of. And I do need to get a little political here. However, I hear the term Indigenous European. I hear people say, oh, I'm Indigenous Celtic, or I'm Indigenous this group from Europe. The term Indigenous European originally stemmed from a white supremacist group, and that resource I linked, the little Celtic Alliance for Indigenous Folks, the Celtic Alliance standing with Indigenous folks, it touches on that. How the term Indigenous European was originally coined by white supremacists and people, white supremacists who denounced the arrival of immigrants of color in their country. So, oh yeah, I don't think anyone here would dare call themselves Indigenous European, obviously, or anything of that sort. I just wanted to touch on the
I think if anyone does, they don't know. I didn't know that until just now. Not that I would call
yeah
myself that, but
Yeah, though I
Yeah.
actively do research on it. Though yes, we do recognize the similarities that have happened, though we are completely different groups. Therefore, our indigenous cultures would not be open to Celtic folks or any other peoples from European regions, considering the context of colonialism and considering that the term indigenous now is to refer to peoples who have non-white heritage, aka people of color. So that's my exhaustion-induced answer to that. Hopefully, I made sense.
Wonderlight asks if is there any case where the term native is appropriate? Gen question.
In what context is that? Like, you mean in like applying it to like a native European? In that case, no.
Or like if a plant or an animal is native to a region? I need a little more context.
Yeah. Oh, Romani people can be considered indigenous. Oh, yes, yes, my apologies. I am exhausted. Yes, it does. It does seem that I do know that there are similar practices. Yes, native would be all right to replace the word indigenous. They mean the same thing. And in regards to the similar spiritual practices, yes, there are similar spiritual practices, and that's perfectly okay as long as you separate the practices in the context of indigeneity and Celtic practices. You're good. I know Celtic people often wear animal parts like animal furs, bones, and whatnot, honoring Mother Nature. I think smoke cleansing, not smudging, is a thing in Celtic culture. Correct my being if I'm wrong. So yes, there are similarities, and
There's correlations because
yes,
we both like experience nature. You'll feel that. As long as
yeah,
you don't just go like taking like Native American tools and shit, like using white sage and Palo Santo and all that, and being like, I'm gonna use it for my stuff, like stuff like that. But I feel like you already know.
no, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's fine. There are a lot of paganism has been like was the first religion beliefs from around the world, and paganism dealt with similar themes. Caring like dealing with earth and natural energies and life and animals and all that wonderful stuff. So there's going to be overlap no matter what culture you go into, especially in different time periods. You can practice it the way that your people had taught you to practice. Just don't go over here and saying, "Okay, I'm Native American now, and I'm going to use your sage, and that's how this is going to be." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and before I forget, I do want to invite other non-white alter humans to speak up on stage on this panel if they desire to.
I don't know if there is one more. Is there?
I think there's a few folks in the audience who are non-white.
Bedtime for the birds.
Bedtime for Borbs. Bedtime for my being soon. Holy hell.
Right here. Hey, hey, it's been a terror.
You have a bird named Hey Hey?
Yes, it's new. I got a new parrotlet, and his name is Hey Hey because
Did
he's
you
a
watch
jackass.
Moana?
No, I don't watch Moana. That's why I used the name Hey Hey. Yeah, I like Hey Hey. I saw the second one. It was alright. It was very mid. It's not bad, but it was very mid.
That's understandable, Neota. I hope I said that right. You're also free to, just talk about your experiences with alter humanity in reference to your human culture if you want. It doesn't have to be about spirituality.
Wait, I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, I'm glad I said it right. While I am waiting for some folks to talk, I do want to touch on whatchamacallit, some of the issues on how Indigenous folks are being treated across America. I do want to mention that since it was brought up. It still happens. We are still actively being oppressed. It's a very minor incident, though it happened to my being. I called Social Security because they wanted to lower my check. And because I have a Spanish last name, they sent my being the whole fucking written appeal in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. I just have a Spanish last name. Like, oh, you think I'm fluent in Spanish even though I've never spoken a lick of Spanish to you? Though on more serious cases, on the reservations, a lot of folks are poor. There's a lot of addiction and other issues on the reservations. We're dealing with a lot, and it's often not covered in the news, and most people won't know about it unless they're told by an Indigenous person who actively seeks out information on these issues, though. It's important to note that oppression and suffering against Indigenous peoples, it's not a past thing. It's a very, very present thing, and it's something that needs to be recognized and rectified.
It's happened to me.
Wah.
Mostly like through sometimes I've gotten advertisements where I've gotten Spanish advertisements for some reason. And I don't understand at all how that happened because my name isn't even Spanish. So you let me know that one. My favorite is when people come up to me and they just start speaking Spanish, but to be fair, it's half the time it's people that are Spanish, so they think I speak Spanish. There's only been like a handful of times where like people go up to me or whatever and they just start like assuming that I know Spanish and speak in Spanish and all this stuff. And I'm like, I really don't. I've just gotten to the point now where I'm like, je parle français, comment tu t'appelles?
And
Je
yes,
ne
Nyota,
parle le espagnol.
Feel free to. My favorite is when people ask my being what race I am because they can't figure it out.
How many race you want to be, baby?
Like, okay, you just
Oh,
raise your hand. You can raise your hand on the stage, and I'll approve the request. It's that little hand thing. Oh, there we go.
here, go, got it.
Wah
Wah,
wah.
Hey.
wah.
Hello.
Hi. But yeah, like I've definitely seen a lot of racism in some ultra-human groups. Like I've seen a lot with about like different creatures that are from like indigenous mythology, and there's like white people claiming that it's like their kin type, and like sometimes they're like saying terms with like indigenous people would not want them to be saying. I've also seen this with like African things. Like I met some people that were like identifying as various African gods from the Yoruba tradition. Like one person who was white was saying that they were Oshun, and they were like equating her with all these other deities from like
No,
Western cultures. And like
no.
in the Yoruba tradition, it's very close. Like and that just really bothered me as like someone who is black and like obviously I wouldn't go around doing that even though I do want to be connected to that culture, but it's like you can't just like make all these random claims about it like if you're not actually like connected with those people like in real life. Like you have to get like initiated and all this shit, but like these people were like just like claiming that like they have a right to it and they're like the deities from these religions. And yeah, it's just like it seems like it's a huge problem. Then I also met some people that were saying that like what your ancestors were has to do with your kin type. Like this one person, another white person, of course, they said that their ancestors were like kings and stuff. And like that has to do with like their kin type. And it's like, well, my ancestors were enslaved. So what does that mean about me? Like it's just like really, I guess, white centric ways of viewing things. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say.
I feel
Yeah,
that. That's kind of how I was feeling because back in the day, I've seen people like come into other kin spaces and they're like, I'm Quetzalcoatlkin or Kukulkankin, and that
Yeah, I've
drove
seen
me
those.
up the wall. And I am like, and they'll be like, you're denying my identity, and I'm like, no, I'm not. There's one. It's a deity, and it has nothing to do with your white ass.
literally.
It's so annoying. And then they get mad because I'm getting mad over it. And then everyone's like, why are you upset? And I'm like, what do you mean, why am I upset?
Yeah, and like I've also seen people that like claiming that they're identifying as like this indigenous creature that you're not supposed to say the name of, but they just say it's like this random like thing that has like looks like a deer basically, and it's like from what I've heard from indigenous people at least, that's not like something appropriate to be doing, but it seems really common like on like Tumblr and stuff.
Yeah, and they always identify as the false version of the thing. Like not even anything described in indigenous stories, just the movie version of the skull deer creature. I'm like, that's not what it is. You don't know what you're talking about.
It's because everyone on Tumblr is brain dead.
Yeah, real.
They have no brainstem, I am convinced. And that's coming from someone who was there nearly at the beginning.
I have no brainstem.
Nope, neither do I. But I've seen that too, like all over the place. And I'm like, I don't even know what to do anymore when people are like, oh, I'm so edgy. I'm gonna be this thing that I can't repeat. And also I'm gonna be this thing that I can't repeat because I have some respect.
Yeah, it's like you don't have to believe that speaking the name of the creature invokes anything evil. Just be respectful. Like fuck.
It's not hard. Do you not teach that to you in school? Do your parents not teach you about that anymore? I guess not.
Like I've also
I
seen a lot of people. I've also seen a lot of people acting like if someone says that there's like cultural appropriation, they'd be like, well, saying that like that it's appropriating, you're making these cultures die, and like letting us use the culture like keeps it alive. But like I don't think it
oh,
really
I've
keeps it
heard that
alive.
so many
Let people
times.
practice it like improperly.
That's not how that works.
I've seen that
Yeah.
in indigenous spaces. I see the white people or the pretendians there. Like people are like, oh, I'm 1/16th indigenous. You can't deny me my culture. And like, okay, you're just for lack of a better word. I'm sorry for even saying this word though. Like, okay, you're grooming our elders and you're tugging at their heartstrings so you can get your little place in a community that you don't belong in. I'm just like, okay, we will keep our culture alive. You think that we can't keep our own culture alive. You think that we can't keep our own knowledge. We don't need you to engage with our culture to keep it alive. Like, have a little faith in us, for fuck's sake.
Okay, but
Yeah,
Serenus be
it's
looking like
really
a snack.
patronizing.
Mm-hmm.
Just me. Serenus be looking like a snack though. No, people don't think it's that guy though. We're
Yeah,
talking about another creature that emo 16-year-olds love to emulate for some reason.
yeah.
I don't know why. Like it's always specifically them. I don't know.
Who knows? There's like, oh, this forbidden dark creature that no one's allowed to say, oh yeah, this is me for real. Like, no,
Can
no,
you
it's
all
not.
emulate that thing from Don't Think About It? From R.L. Stein's Don't Think About It. It's the same thing. You can't think about it. It kills people or some shit.
So I did like just like attached to SCPs or whatever. Maybe you're an SCP and you don't know it. Just
Yeah,
don't.
do that.
Right.
Be a fictive or something. I don't know. Just not this. Were you there for the time when Tumblr went nuts and people were identifying as like inanimate objects? Or
Uh,
was it just me?
mine go blank.
I saw like a whole post of like people that like identified as like a fucking violins, pianos, cellos, flowers.
Apparently, it is a legitimate identity,
Is it
though.
really?
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen it before.
Is it really? I have not seen that. It was in Tumblr though, and it was like presented in a very like just the teen things, you know? I was
yeah.
like, what
Apparently,
is
it is
that?
a legitimate identity. Yeah.
I need to see. I need to actually see some stuff on that because when that came out, I was like, I think I was like 17. I was like, I was still in high school, and I remember seeing that, and I was like, what? What is this? Why is this here? And I don't remember why it was there.
I imagine it's well. I remember that a lot of people have attachments to objects and apply certain meanings and energies to objects. So I imagine that's part of where the identity would come from.
I wonder how long that's been around. Now I'm curious. I need to know.
Probably for a while. It's just probably been hidden around.
Where are the object kin summits?
Well,
We need an object kin.
now you gave someone an idea.
Good. Someone has to do that because I
Oh,
want to talk to them. I need to understand.
Now it's obligated. We have to know. We have to know what
I
it's
have
like.
to know. I need to know that I hate you, Zaki. Fuck
Yeah,
off,
I mean
Zaki.
that'd be cool. I don't really know that much about Object Kin, honestly.
I just know that it was like, if you like music this way, then you're violin kin, and if you like music this way, then you're piano kin. And I was like,
Oh, I think I remember those. I
Oh.
think I remember
do you
that.
remember that?
Those. I think I remember that post you were talking about. That
Yeah,
was forever ago.
I know. Like I'm telling, I was like 17. I'm 28 now. It was a minute. It was a hot minute ago.
Yeah, understandable.
Eric is music kin.
Is
Doesn't know
he?
it yet. He has to be.
He has to be.
He has to be.
So, what music kin
Zaki, I
exactly?
am going to kill you.
What music kin exactly, though? Would you say?
Yeah, what is music
organ? Erica's organ music kin, or
I need
whatever
to-
that. Whatever the. How do I describe it? What's that? The thing from Phantom of the Opera that you play whenever you enter a voice chat. He's that
That's an
kin.
organ. He's an organ kin.
Literally.
Organ kin.
Anyways, we're getting off topic and we're 20 minutes over the thing, so I'll go ahead and end the panel here. Thank you all for listening in, and thank you, Zeppi and Yota, for offering your viewpoints. It's much appreciated. And I'm glad that this panel went over well, despite my being absolutely fucking exhausted.
Yeah, for sure. It was a really good panel, and I hope you get some rest after all this.
Oh, I definitely will. I'm just being a little doingus.
Maybe you're not an object. Maybe you're just music kin. I don't understand what that entails, but that feels like it works.
Organkin.
Organ kin. Angel of music kin.
Anyways, Volanthile has his questions put out in the mature panel discussion for the 18 plus discussion on draconic hunting instincts. The server is going to remain open until December 26th. So we can all celebrate Crimbus as the summit. And that discussion will be open, so feel free to add to whenever. And our closing ceremonies will be in 40 minutes, I believe.
Okay.
So we can probably hop in voice chat until then.
Yeah. Everyone go to voice chat. Merry Christmas.
Merry Quimbus.
Merry
Merry Crisis.
Merry Crisis.
Crisis.